If you have suffered a miscarriage, then I want you to know that you have a really good chance still of having a healthy baby and a healthy pregnancy. I'm Denise Noyer-Erez, and I am your Fertility Godmother, and I help women save time and pain on their path to pregnancy. And I have been blessed to do this work for over almost 19 years, almost 19 years. And one of the things I see that's really common, and it's way more common than we were led to believe. There's, in the United States alone, 3 million women a year have a miscarriage. And I went, hi, Allie. I'm here today to share with you a little bit about miscarriages, and if you have any questions or you want to ask me anything, then please come just type in the chat and let me know what your questions are. If you're going through one, if you've had one, I want you to know that you have a chance, a very good chance of having a healthy pregnancy and having a healthy baby. And I want you to know that you did the best you could, and sometimes things just happen, and sometimes there's things that you can do to, hi Amna, hi Feroza, how are you guys? Sometimes there's things that you can do to prevent it, to prevent it or to improve your chances. So I don't want you to feel guilty. A lot of the women I work with feel guilty, but there's a loss, and that's real. There's a real sense of a loss and fear, right? You're never the same after you have had a miscarriage, whether you had one or you've had several. It's never the same. So I just want to share a couple things with you. And if you want, someone told me that my 4 miscarriages could be because I can't carry boys. No, that's not true. That's not true. You got 4 miscarriages, Allie? I didn't remember that. I know you had a few of them. Wow. So it's important, right? And I think, Allie, you shared with me that you had some testing done recently. So it's important. What you want to do when you have a miscarriage is you want to have testing. And hopefully you're not having many miscarriages. That's actually a little bit of a different conversation, or more in-depth conversation that I'm happy to have with you. But what's important to know is that you want to get tested if you've had more than 1 miscarriage. Allie, I think that you've done that. Is that right? When you go through a miscarriage, it's important to allow yourself to grieve and to mourn. And that may look different for many of you, right? It may look different because depending on where you're at and what your attachment was. So there's no right or wrong, but I want you to know that it's really important to acknowledge your feelings and to go ahead and grieve it. And sometimes there's shrines that you can do. Sometimes you write a letter to your own unborn child. Sometimes you have a service for them, light a candle. There's some things that you can do to help, process that and close that gap. But it's really important to make sure that you process it. I was just speaking with a woman yesterday that I'm working with, and she's so afraid to deal with it. She doesn't know how to handle the emotions, right? She doesn't want to deal with it. She wants to keep moving forward because that's what we're taught to do, to keep moving forward. And yes, we do need to move forward to survive, but we also need to make sure that we grieve and mourn that's baby that we had, that loss. It's so important to move through that loss. So you want to make sure that you're doing that, number one thing. And then the other thing to do is hi Elizabeth. The other thing to do is to really make sure that you take a look back and make sure you were taking all your supplements, your vitamins, and eating healthy and being clean, right? Not drinking and not doing medications. Certain medications or drugs. We definitely, and the same thing with your partner, with your husband or your partner. He also needs to be somewhat clean. No drugs. Okay, a little bit of alcohol is okay. But I want to just emphasize this because I see it a lot with the women that I work with who have had miscarriages. In fact, I was working with a young woman She was only 33 years old, and she was healthy overall, but she wanted to just live her life as if nothing was going to change. So she was partying, drinking a lot, and not really taking she didn't want to take a lot of supplements, and she would have she got pregnant, and she unfortunately miscarried. So we were able to go back and look and say, okay, let's take a look and make sure this time that you're taking the right supplements, and you're going to do it for at least three months, right? So some of you may already be doing that, making sure that you're taking the high quality prenatal. Gummies do not work, ladies. I know I've taken so many women off these gummy vitamins. I know that it feels like a treat, but they're not your friend. You need to be on a high quality prenatal. I actually have a link in my Fertility Godmother resources if you need some help with finding a good quality prenatal. But you want to find something that has like methylfolate or folate in it. That'll be one of your first clues to know if it's a good prenatal. So I want you to know that you don't need to feel, you may feel guilty. I don't want you to feel guilty because it probably wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. I'm sure you did the best you could at the time with what you had. Do you have any specific questions for me besides that you can't carry boys? Allie, do you even know if they were boys? I don't understand. That's an interesting comment, but it's absolutely not true. It wouldn't matter what the sex was. I had one before pregnant with my daughter. See, so, and then you were able to get pregnant and have a healthy baby. So that's one of the things. Hi, Hira. That's one of the things that I think is important to hear, is that most of you will get pregnant if you've miscarried, and then you'll get pregnant again. And it's just doing some fine tuning and some tweaking, making sure, like Allie, I want to make sure. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, Allie, it's not. No, only because I've been told this. No, that's absolutely not true. We want to make sure that if you had multiple miscarriages, that you've had your uterus checked to make sure there's no polyps or a septum or a fibroid, something that could be impeding the growth of the embryo, or even implantation. So that's really important to know and to be aware of. And then, of course, if you've had multiple miscarriages, you want to make sure there's no blood clotting factors in your body or autoimmune problems or something with the thyroid. So there's a lot of different things to look at that you may need to push your doctor, because the doctors don't always do these tests. And I know depending on who your doctor is and where you are located, you might have to advocate for yourself to figure out, to get those basic tests done. And if there's nothing wrong, if you find nothing wrong, then we have to go back and take a look at, okay, where can you get some help from, maybe an alternative point of view, a holistic point of view. Maybe there's something with the nutrition that you can do. I see this a lot, just changing the nutrition, the diet makes a big difference. Again, the supplements. A lot of doctors will say it's okay to have a gummy vitamin. It's not okay to have a gummy vitamin. Change your supplements. Make sure that you're doing all of those things, and so that when you do get pregnant again, that make sure that your hormone, if you're getting pregnant naturally, make sure that your hormones are balanced. Make sure that your menstrual cycles are regular for the most part, right? That they're within that 28 to 30 day range, as close as possible to that. You want to be more than 26 days, and definitely under 32 would be the long window. I'm an older mom, so I should have checked. I should ask to check my ovarian reserve. So Allie, ovarian, that's a good, hi Haley. That's a really good question, or a comment about ovarian reserve. So ovarian reserve doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have an increased risk of miscarriage. It means that you don't have a lot of eggs left. So the trick there is to really work on egg quality. That's going to be your biggest bet. So if you're having regular menstrual cycles and you're ovulating, then you need to do all the things to help with egg quality. And if you're older, then your partner needs to also do everything he can, because what happens is when the sperm fertilizes that egg, the egg assesses that, goes back and assesses and says, okay, I can correct this. I can fix that. I can't fix this. I can't fix this. And then the energy just kind of, it takes a lot of energy to make a baby. So you need the help of the partner's sperm to be as strong and as healthy as possible. I think that's one of the missing pieces, is everything is so focused on the woman's egg, because the woman's egg, you're amazing. As a woman, we are amazing, we are strong, we are powerful, and we can fix a lot of things. But we also need support. We also need help. And that comes down to the very basics of creating a life. The sperm has to be healthy too, because it's half of the DNA. It makes sense, right? We are getting there. We're getting there with science, but I don't think we need a bunch of scientific, even though it's out there, there's a ton of science out there. We don't need it to know that it's 50% DNA. That's our future child together. Are there any symptoms for having polyps? No, there's no. Well, sometimes there could be some spotting as a symptom, but the base thing to do is to have the uterus checked, doing either an HSG, a histosalpingogram, or doing a saline ultrasound to make sure that the uterus is clear from any polyps or from any cysts or fibroids. It's actually really important. I've seen it a lot. And even if you're under the care and you're doing an insemination, or usually they check it for IVF, but sometimes they don't always check your uterus before doing an insemination. So make sure that your doctor, if you're working with a reproductive endocrinologist or an OB-GYN, make sure they check your uterus with a saline ultrasound and an HSG before you start medications and you start doing the inseminations. So important. So important. So just to recap, because this is really an intimate discussion here. The first thing is to process the best you can. You're never going to be the same after a miscarriage, right? You're always going to have that piece that feels like it's missing. You're always going to remember that soul, and you may even crave. I have women that really, really miss this baby that they never were able to hold. So everybody is so different, but do something where you can up-level that. Sorry, it sounds like kind of technical, but do something where you can remember that soul, remember that brief moment of joy that you had when you were pregnant, and continue to remember that soul that maybe didn't come. There's an old saying that comes from the Kabbalah that says at the end of it, it's a pretty big passage, but at the end of it, it says, the reason that life was taken too soon, before you even got to know it, is because it didn't need to be here to get to the next level of where it needed to go. It just needed to be here for a short period of time. And it's a beautiful saying. And there's a lot of different rituals for you to do. So find something for yourself to really feel complete, and do something in honor of that baby so that you can lift that spirit up and lift yourself up as well, to keep that connection. And remember her or him, if you know. Remember that little soul that you had for just a brief moment. It is okay, and it is important, I find, in part of the healing process. So don't let anybody take that away from you. And it will get easier emotionally, just as everything does. But the trick is not to pretend it didn't happen. Okay, it's really important to honor yourself, and honor that soul. And the other thing is to take a look and see, could you have changed anything different with your supplements, with your eating habits, and see what could have possibly, what can you do differently? And that goes for you and your husband or your partner. Okay, sending you a big hug. I know that you're going to get pregnant and have a healthy baby. And if you are ready for some additional help, I'm happy to help you and support you through this. You can just DM me, or you can click on I can do a free consultation with you. Sending you a big hug and tons of love. And I'll see you next week. Take care.